Right, ladies and gentlemen, we have got two standing items on the last segment of our agenda this afternoon. He is no stranger to the stage. He was here this morning debating with Vanessa. Let's welcome back Johann van Rooyen to present to us on the topic From Exposure to Confidence, Simplifying Cybersecurity Complexities. Please put your hands together for Johann.
All right, good afternoon. Did the cookies and coffee do it for the last session, Angela? All right. So the boring hour is upon us, and I'll try to make mine not as boring as I can. So, SALT security maturity matrix. I'm having a look at that, and something went wrong at the bottom here. Can you see that? So somebody forgot the subtitle, which was not necessary. So we'll discuss the subtitle then. SALT security maturity matrix. If you hear the name, what you suspect it to be and what you think it's there for. We had Francois from CES just now explaining the penetration testing and the automated way of doing it. Did you also explain the cost involved in that? Is that the later stage that you'll explain? So about a year ago, when we started working on our security portfolio in SALT, one thing I've noticed, and that was not just at SALT, that was at previous companies as well, is that we good and well to have penetration testing and vulnerability scans and security audits and all of that. But taking it into a Namibian context, we've seen the following. The first one, Angelo, het jy geld altyd daar so? Nou jy wil nie gee nie. Nee, ons ken daai. All right. Then we have the other problem. We get companies that says they don't know where to start. They know it needs to be a penetration test, or it must be internal or external. And what do? Vanessa, they all go and they go AI it, and they send us a tender, and it says everything top to bottom, and then 28.5 million cost comes out, and they go, that's not exactly what we had in mind. So what we started was to develop something that makes more sense to Namibian companies, both big and small, to take vulnerability, scanning, penetration testing, both internal and external, and minimize it in a very condensed way of doing, which on the end is the following. It's not a complete penetration test, it's not a complete vulnerability, but you get the value of what's wrong in your company. Normally, the first penetration test is the most complex. It's the one that people don't know where to start. And what we do with this is your starting point before going into a massive penetration test. It gives you the starting ground, basically, to have an idea what's going on in your network. We also get the companies that says, well, we're just 20 people. We don't know why we need to do it, but we need to do it. It comes from corporate, or it's part of a certain standard. But we're a company of 20 people, and this fits in well into the cost and into the first step into penetration testing. So I'm not really going to speak off the slides. Again, numerous companies feel they're too small. They don't understand why. Some organizations lack the necessary maturity. Some just see it as a complex undertaking. And then the one that we see the most is, ons het nie geld nie. We don't know where to start, ons het nie geld nie, but we need to do something. So, and that's where we started to make this more sense. So, we start with vulnerability scans, penetration testing, device assessment, and your security posture. So, and from that, we jump into only 3 levels of reporting. Because some of you would know the penetration testing reporting is 80% of the cost sometimes, because it's a massive report. So what we do is we break it down into 3 levels: low, medium, and high risk. High risk obviously being the worst one. And when you're at a low risk, you are then ready to go into a big penetration test and do it in the form of certain standards. This is the other problem we've realized. The different frameworks, different standards. Hospitals does HIPAA, but we don't have standards for that. The only one that really follows certain standards is the banks that needs to follow PCI DSS. And now with Francia, maybe you can remember, is it BIT 32 from Bank of Namibia that's now out or coming out. There's all these different standards. Even Francia is saying, it's like, I don't know, it changes monthly, we don't know, it's a different thing every month. That gets difficult, and because of that, we moved away from those standards. Not in an enterprise environment, but when you run the security matrix offering, we work on a loose standards broadly influenced by ISO 27001, and we don't stick to, let's say, PCI, HIPAA, all the other complex standards. We stick to a basic framework for 2701 to give you a basic idea of what you can expect and what comes out of it. Then again, to remember, this is your starting point. So this is not based on an exact standard, but a security posture and a maturity. So you are either quite mature, low level, low risk, or the other way around, high risk with a very low maturity, and this is how you grow through the process. So just an example, high risk is normally a company, no backups. Outdated network, infrastructure equipment, no firmware, none of this is being updated, old operating system versions, hardware. It's normally the company you walk into where you go, oh, this is going to be a long, long month. So that's basically what that would be. Tier 2 starts moving into client processes and basic understanding of security. Certain components are already established or in place. They do perform certain forms of patching, yet vulnerabilities remain. Vulnerability scanning never done. And we find it in companies like this, you normally have equipment that's installed but not really used to the certain extent. So you get these companies and for these that's technical would know, you get a firewall, brand new 40 gate, it's installed, and the basic internet rule is all, any, out, any, there we go. Working, no problem, 5 minutes setup, no security whatsoever. You can just use your normal 3G, 4G device, and you wasted your money on that Fortinet. Lower risk is where companies do vulnerability scans, they do address it, they are at a point where they can perform pen tests, they do look at things like to regularly review the hardware and the updated security configurations. And in these situations, a lot of the time, it's to foster a culture of awareness, security awareness, where you move away from technology but more to the people, because this is what we see as well. You have all the technology in place, you have all the bells and whistles, the vehicle works well, it's oiled, and you never actually trained your people on the ground how to use it properly. Or the other situation, we know this as well, what happens normally in a security situation? We have, in situations like this, you have all the equipment and you have one or two users not protected, and that's normally where your problem comes. And they are not even aware that they're doing something wrong. And this is where you're low risk, where we then move into training those staff members. And a person that can really help you with that is Vanessa. If I can get her off AI and cloud, then she trains security quite well. So I didn't want to make it a long presentation, but basically we've used this in the last year with quite a few companies, and the good thing about it is where the client then says, well, it wasn't that complex and it wasn't that costly. We also have a cost model that we work per user, per device, and per network equipment. And that scales well from a small company into bigger companies. And you would find that companies end up seeing just a massive cost, but they can't really see what the cost is. The way we do it is you now realize how it is per user, per device, and your massive amount of equipment might be in the company. So we've used this successfully in the last year. It was something new we decided to develop, and it was more to get companies buy-in into security postures, not just penetration testing or vulnerability scans, but to really understand their network. So that being said, any questions? None? I'll be around for these who want to. Angelo, is nou tyd om te gaan die goedere.